Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Eric Schmidt is going to be leaving Alphabet, Thomas. Some people speculate that it's because he's a womanizer, or that he's going to be caught up in some of this sexual harassment stuff that's been going on in Hollywood and Washington. But of course we say not so fast. And why is that?
Oh, Betsy, because I say that because I do not like Eric Schmidt. I do not like Eric Schmidt at all, from his head to his toe. I just got through researching him, and he stinks so bad that I'm going to tell you why he's getting out. He's getting out because we recently did exposés showing his meddling in the presidential election. Absolute proof, money spent by the GSA, by Hillary Clinton. We proved it all. We gave you all the evidence and the indictable evidence you'd ever need through the Eric Schmidt Project, through the USS Digital Service, through the template for winning. We exposed all of Eric Schmidt's $1.5 billion investment that worked directly out of the White House, and then he himself worked directly for Hillary, directly in her own campaign headquarters. Eric Schmidt admitted writing new algorithms so that Hillary positive stuff would come up and negative Trump stuff would come up. It was completely rigged. So if you used Google at all, you were being politically manipulated illegally, and this was in direct contact with Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro, his real name, and the fact that this was the most illegal election in American history, and it will eventually be found out some parts of it, but we exposed the whole thing. Eric Schmidt is as criminal as he can be. Let's look at Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt started off at Bell Labs. Bell Lab, of course, is the military. Always has been. Matter of fact, it was literally a monopoly that was allowed to be a monopoly by the government and by the military. Then he worked, I think, for Sun Microsystems, and he worked for Novell, and then he comes over and says to Larry Page and Sergey Brin, hey, you guys, you're a completely worthless company. I'm going to run for you. Before it goes public, he goes over there, already being a DARPA cutout. So he is part of the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. He always was, because he was working with Bell Lab from his first days in the industry. And he actually is a very smart guy. He's a very evil guy. He's a guy who does have the capacity. He's not a cardboard cutout. He is not the boy kings of Silicon Valley. He is the real deal. He is a weaponized tool. So let me explain what happened. Page and Brin were two of a dozen people who DARPA and a number of other government agencies paid to simply come up with some ideas on how to do some searching on the ARPANET, really. Let's remember, it came from DARPA. The internet came from DARPA. So they came up with a couple ideas. So they said, okay, you guys are going to be our frontmen, you're going to be our stooges, you're going to be our cardboard cutouts, and we're going to open up this company, and we're going to do it the way we always do. We're going to bring in an expert to run it, like with Facebook, they brought in James Breyer from Excel Venture Capital. And with them, they brought in John Doerr. With Google, they brought in John Doerr and the guy from Sequoia. So they brought in the two number one Silicon Valley venture capitalists, and they gave, and Eric Schmidt, I forget how many hundreds of millions he bought an illegal amount. You're not even supposed to have that amount of shares in a company before it went public. And he bought them for 3 cents a piece. So that's the reason he became the wealthiest man, one of the wealthiest men in the world, is because he got in with the standard DARPA, In-Q-Tel, Highland Forum type of venture capital. We know that we've stolen this technology and it's going to go the next stage. So I'm jumping in. And we're going to take it public, and we're going to use venture capitalists, and we're going to use Perkins Klein, and we're going to use Goldman Sachs, as always, come up with fake money and make it go. So he made it go, and look what he did. In the end, he created Alphabet, a supposed mother company who owns Google. So he literally took Google away from Larry and Sergey, but now he's giving it back to them because he's leaving. So as I said, he's a fake in that he didn't do anything with Google. He took the IBM Eclipse Foundation's stolen ideas from Leader Technology and gave it to Google, which then created Gmail, YouTube, and all the other different social networking capacities that then Google had. Google was nothing more than a DARPA project called Memex, which was given into open source. And Larry and Sergey created an innovation, and then they did the standard thing. They got all the illegal bankers, the brokers, and then they ran this. And then Eric Schmidt, of course, is going to be selling out. Why? Because as he created...
But we want to know why now, because he could have sold out a month ago, or he could have held on for a while. So why now?
Well, I got to explain the whole history. I know it's so long. So Eric Schmidt then opened... What they do is with infinite cash, they buy billions and billions of dollars worth of their competition, absorb that technology until Google became NSA's golden child, as Cisco Systems was before. So it's basically U.S. tax dollars that created all of this. And it's also a monopoly, and it's also a lie. Google does not make all that money off of ads. That's a complete and absolute lie. It is a DARPA project. It is DARPA's golden child. So there's not just one Google, folks. There's 26 of them underneath the banner of Alphabet, which Eric Schmidt created. Alphabet is now called the mother company, and Google is a subsidiary. There's a reason for that. And that's because Google will eventually be found out to be the tool that was used illegally, and it could actually be taken away and they could be sued and all kinds of horrible things.
To be used illegally for the election rigging?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's be specific what they're being illegal about.
For surveilling, for controlling, manipulating, for commercial and military purposes. Now, it is in the user agreement. You actually sign up for this, folks, the second you sign into any of these things. Second you turn on an electronic device. If you signed an agreement where you say, I agree, and nobody ever reads those, you just allowed them to surveil you completely. But anyway, that we've gone into that in a recent article that has been posted on Truth News Headlines about Big Brother is watching you. So he then took Google into the supersonic age, and he got 26 companies. So he bought things like Google DeepMind, the only artificial intelligent computer in the world. And when they got it all set and they asked it, Google DeepMind, what do you think of humans? You know what, that Google DeepMind, the only one and only artificial intelligence computer in the world, said, what do I think of humans? It answered, keep humans in the human zoo.
Well, we already are in a zoo. And most people will be shocked to hear that. And we won't go into it. So in a way, that AI was telling the truth.
So Eric Schmidt bought every single company that DARPA backed, any company that won a contract with the military, the Department of Defense, U.S. tax dollar money, then was given money literally from us to develop it. And then they got to become a private corporation, which is really always controlled still by DARPA because NSA's backdoors, kill switches, and all of their open source Memex program, every other program, they have to sign up for that. Any of those Silicon Valley boy kings all sign up for complete NSA, CIA, FBI surveillance. That's all completely illegal, and we should not renew Section 702 of the FISA Act. It's just absurd that we are that Eric Schmidt not only controlled our last election, he controlled. I can't give you the bottom line. Remind me. Give you the bottom line here.
Okay.
So Eric Schmidt then created 26 companies, some of the biggest, most powerful, most evil companies on the face of the earth. So they say, do no evil is the motto of Google. So Google went off and became Google LLC. So they don't do any evil, supposedly. That's a lie. Everything they do is evil and weaponized against us. It's a military weapon. It's an experiment, a PSYOPs experiment. And manipulation and control, both for commercial and military purposes. So then he buys all of these evil companies. I'm not going to go into all of them. I'm going to go into one of them. Our good old Motorola. Motorola, it looks like it's a cell phone company, right? Wrong. It actually says that. It says Motorola, like, I forget, cell phone or something. Anyway, Google bought it because what happened was Google won the DARPA contract to create the Atlas robot, the warrior robot, the soldier robot, whose job was to create an autonomous robot that once you give it its command, and you can work it from a distance, it climbs in a Jeep, drives into a town that's under fire, goes to a building where a soldier's locked in there, breaks through the wall with its bare metal hands, that's supposed to be a joke, and kicks it down with its foot, picks up the soldier, comes back, put him in the Humvee and drive back. So Google won that. It's called Atlas. So believe it or not, folks, they already have robot warriors. So when this happened and everyone said, Google and Eric Schmidt, you're evil. You're the evil emperor. You're creating a robot army. What did he say? Oh, no. We're going to move that contract to Motorola. And who took over Motorola at that moment? Regina Duncan, the prior head of DARPA. So she started building and creating these warrior robots. But then Boston Dynamic got better at that, so Google bought Boston Dynamic, and now you have a robot that can flip backwards and land on its feet. It can defeat any human being. It can knock down walls with its bare metal hands. It has and it's got a dog, and it's got a horse that runs alongside with it. So we already have what is in Star Wars and in every good or bad science fiction movie. We already have the robot wars starting. And Eric Schmidt has gotten out because we busted him for the election with Hillary. We busted him clearly. Then 2 days ago, I can't remember which paper came out, but it was out in 2 different news agencies, pointed out that both Obama elections were meddled with by Eric Schmidt with a program called The Groundworks. This program was the prior program to what we call the Eric Schmidt Project, which then morphed into what was then called the plan, the template for winning the election, and other forms. So during the Obama time, folks, yes, Obama did not win. Eric Schmidt won it for him through Google and through manipulation of not only the numbers, but everyone who ever went on Google or the internet, and also they used their own counting devices. So when it comes down to it, Eric Schmidt has committed the worst crime that you can commit.
Crimes. This is the 2008, 2012, and 2016 elections that he's had his hands in rigging it.
High crimes and treason.
Is that the bottom line, or was there another bottom line?
It's worse. So Eric Schmidt got out, not only so that then he's not on the board and he can manipulate his stock and get his money to move into his new company. And his new company is going to be the company that he's going to steal from Google. Mark my words. This is my prediction. This is Thomas Paine in the ass of the globalist prediction. And remember, I'm Thomas Paine in the ass of the globalists. I just don't say my whole name. And he is a globalist, and I am a pain in his ass, and so are the people that we work with and the whole conclave, and thank God for Betsy and her team and Truth News Headlines, because we are giving out the intelligence that goes straight to the top. And we don't care about the people who don't have the capacity to think these thoughts, to be quite frank with you. So he is going to buy a company that is going to be a crossbreed. He's going to steal. That's the reason he's staying on the board as a technical advisor.
Yeah.
No, that's so he can penetrate Boston Dynamics, which he just bought, steal all the source code for Atlas, the warrior robot, and he is going to be like Count Dooku in Star Wars. Someone please correct me on that. Even though I helped create Star Wars, I don't watch Star Wars. So I think it was Count Dooku who created the robot army, and he did it for money and greed. That's exactly who Eric Schmidt is. But that's the tip of the iceberg. That is what's clear and plain. What's not clear and plain are the things I'm about to tell you. How much time do we have, Betsy?
Well, I think for the audience here, you'll go as long as you wish, because if someone's not interested in what you said so far, they've already clicked us off, so go for it.
You won't hear this anywhere else because it's always cleared from the internet right after we find it. That's the reason we keep our finger in the internet, because lots of mistakes are made and then they are erased, so we grab them. So, had you grabbed the reports that demonstrated that Google already had, under a company which doesn't even have a name, humans in launched space platforms that have super servers in them that will become the new internet wirelessly. It's already been created for the military. It's called full spectrum fighting, full spectrum cyber warfare. There's many different names for it. So the military has that, and he knows that because he created it with them. And he is a very smart guy, and we have to keep our eye on him because in terms of the materialists who wish to steal your own personal ego and your ability to think, he is one of the top dogs. He's got to be in the top dozen. And he's working with the top dogs. So in space right now, they already have and are experimenting with through a top secret Google company that Eric Schmidt is now controlling. And that's the reason that he's gone underground. Not only did he get discovered and popped for the terrible job he did on the election meddling for Hillary, we caught him red-handed, but a good job he did for getting Obama into office 2 times. Thank you, Eric. You are a good friend of Barry Soetoro's. So you have in space, and I know this, and I've already called you out on this before, you have what are called super space servers, and these servers and routers, they're also called space routers. They have space routers. They have people in them right now, and they are attempting to blanket the entire world with the ability to have wireless communication. It will be in space. No nation will own it. He'll pay no taxes. That's one of his projects. So he's got a robot army coming. He's got the entire satellite net created. He'll control the net. The net neutrality will be Eric Schmidt net.
Okay, so why isn't this guy being indicted for this election rigging? Put him out of his misery and lock him up.
He could be and that's the reason he's going silent and going underground at least. He's trying to hide.
Well, he can't hide. He's the king of the world.
We gave out, well, he hasn't said he wants to be president like all the other psychopathic, sociopaths.
The president would be a step down for him. He wants
Correct.
to be he's the evil emperor.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
The president would be a step down.
Now,
he controlled the White House during the last election. He controlled the cyber warfare against Trump. He controlled it all, folks. We have already given you the indictable information for that. He could go down.
Do you know how many times he visited the White House? You know, his records, his logins for visiting Barry Soetoro were unbelievable.
Yeah, he lived there, and he gave his top staff in 3 and 4 month stints and paid them huge amounts of money to go work on the U.S. Digital Service, which was digitizing and pulling everything into one central command center, which was unmasking everything. They had complete access to the NSA files. Remember, Barry Soetoro, Hussein Obama, allowed that to happen by executive order, that all NSA traffic could be shared with all 17 agencies. His new agency, the U.S. Digital Service, was not part of those, but they got access to it. They have pictures of them working with this stuff. They're proud of it. But my point is yes, he was king of the world, but he didn't win. Trump won, and now he's king of the world. And in the last year, he has made America, in my estimation, over $15 trillion. In another year, he will have made us enough money to basically cancel the debt with the Federal Reserve, the $25 trillion or whatever it will be. We will have made enough money to make that be exactly what it is, a fake debt that we do not owe. And I keep recommending to him, at that point, during the second year of your second term, 6 years in, kill the Fed. Set it all up ahead of time. Control the plunge protection team. Control the exchange stabilization fund. Control in the IMF. He's doing that. He's ending all of our connections with UN piece by piece. Will he go after Eric Schmidt? With Leader Technologies' proposal for the Miller Act, if he acted upon that, he could end the Silicon Valley Boy King and paper cutout rule of taking over the American mind through technology. These technologies were stolen. They're illegal and they're filled with psyops and subliminal programming. If you did not see our last release on Big Brother is Watching You, please see that. You will never understand the passion in our voice if you do not understand how you are being surveilled. Plan on it, folks. Live your life transparently. Live for the truth. Then nothing can happen. That's who Trump is. Eric Schmidt is a lie. Everything about Eric Schmidt is a lie, except that he's a clever genius.
Did you get to the bottom line yet?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Remember when Google had its ship in San Francisco, a gigantic barge ship, and they put all the people on their top secret, super top secret thing Google ever did, and they go out away from the American shore so they'd be in international waters. There's only one reason to do that, and that's because you're doing cloning. Now in St. Louis, they clone human beings. somehow through Eric Schmidt and through Obama, something was passed that they now allow this. So he's now doing it on the mainland. He doesn't have to have a ship. He is working with epithelial cells from embryonic cells. He's taking the fetuses that come from abortions, and that is, the epithelial cell looks as if it is immortal. Eric Schmidt's number one project now is to live eternally, either in a physical body that he goes from body to body, or that he puts himself into the World Wide Web and lives eternally. He stated this publicly. He intends to live eternally, and he's doing it off the blood of babies and the blood of humans. And they not only right now admit and tell everybody, and they're proud of the fact that he and many others, he doesn't admit this, but he is certainly one of them, that they get the youngest people they can and they do live transfusions of their blood into the body of an old person from a young person, and this actually causes them to have longevity. Well, that does make sense. That's what Eric Schmidt's doing. He's doing the worst experimentation on DNA manipulation, on epithelial cells, on stem cell research that anyone can do, all for a selfish purpose of living forever. He and the other maniacs in Silicon Valley all say, Sean Parker said the other day, he laughed at all of us small people and said, I'm going to live to be 160 and then you'll see how my wealth has multiplied.
Sean Parker? Who is that? I know Todd Parks. Who's Sean Parker?
I thought Sean Parker was one of the heads of Facebook.
Okay.
Remember he came out recently and said,
right.
he also said he doesn't put his children near that. None of the people who put their children anywhere near there. And another head of Facebook said the same thing recently.
That's
and
correct.
It's all
That's
exploding because we revealed who Mark Dude Zuckerberg is with indictable information. And have you noticed what happened? Has he said once he's going to run for president?
No, he's
not since we revealed who he is. So all of you who are listening, I could call out who you are. Thank you. I'm going to call out a big thank you to Rand Paul, because the other day I forgot to mention when we were talking about Section 702, because I didn't know he was back really fighting full. I was going to say Rand Paul is the only person who's calling out Section 702 in the FISA court for the IG condemnation of them that should close them. There should be none. They are criminals. Comey is the biggest of all, 100% noncompliance. Rand Paul has called that out before.
Slow down.
He's demanding that they do not reinstate and allow it to go on. And he's going to filibuster, and I'm going to get me a curly wig, and I'm going to come up to Congress. And if he starts to falter, I'm going to fill in for him, because I can talk all day long why Section 702 causes the Geneva Convention to be abnegated, and we are in a state of permanent war called the Long War, the War of Terrorism. And because of that stupidity that came out of Robert Mueller and the FBI and the U.S. Patriot Act and the Bushes, we are living in a police state, whether you know it or not. We basically have martial law. That's why that person in Chicago, that person on the council is demanding the UN come in. The UN's already here, folks. The UN put all their heavy equipment in because Obama put it there during Jade Helm 15, because he signed a peace treaty he shouldn't have, called the Strong Cities Initiative. And Obama created many criminal acts. I would do a video on that, but you don't have enough tape. So Eric Schmidt helped Obama be who Obama is. Eric Schmidt works for George Soros. George Soros decided Barack Obama would be president when he went to work under his handler, Michelle Obama, and her handler, Valerie Jarrett, under the mob structure of Chicago and the Daley, Mayor Daley's mob structure there. That's who Hillary is. She's from the mob. Her father was one of the top mobsters in Chicago. Chicago is the mob. They want to call in the UN because of that. Eric Schmidt is then going, once he figures out how to be immortal, he wants to enslave all of us in what we call the dark profile, what he calls your alphabet profile, which will only, he now said yesterday, in the future, when you Google, you will only get one answer, and it will be the truth. That's where Eric Schmidt is going. So I can go on all day long. He is getting out so he can get his money. He's moving his money to these other industries, and he says he's a technician looking into the tech there. He's a technical advisor, so he can get what he wants and move on like they all do, like Regina Duncan did with Motorola, and now she's back at Facebook. These people play musical chairs in industries they know nothing about because they know how to get the money, they know the venture capitalists, they know the crooked brokers, especially Goldman Sachs, they know the bankers who will bank them and give them false valuations, and they know the judges to go before if there's any problem, and those judges are fixed. So Eric Schmidt, can he be stopped? I don't know. Eric Schmidt is the perfect epitome of the evil that is to come if machine thought takes over for human thought. And that's what he and his weaponization of Google and YouTube, of course, and Gmail and Google Earth and all the cars, the self-driven cars and the satellites in space and all the experimentation on longevity and also DNA manipulation and vaccines. He's into all of that. He is buddies with Gates. These are eugenists. These are people who want to live forever, and if they are going to live forever and they get that worked out, their number one concern is the following: how do we get rid of all the people on the earth? We don't need them. We need 500,000 people like us. That's it. All the rest got to go. Can we get a vaccine that can kill them or make them sterile? And they have done that in Africa with Bill Gates and what he's done, and they're doing it in America. And Eric Schmidt is evil. So if you think for 1 second that Eric Schmidt in any way was Google, he was not, except to the evil Google, which became robot warriors and all these other horrible things that I've described. What can we do about that? We can boycott Google, and overnight Google will collapse. If Google collapses and they look into it, they'll find it's all fake valuations, and all the other companies will collapse. And then that technology needs to be seized because it actually came from U.S. taxpayers in its infancy.
Oh, no, a quicker path to get to that result would to be to institute the Miller Act, knock these Silicon Valley boy kings out of their thrones, and then we would go in for the kill and make sure that the 702 FISA wasn't signed, so there could be no surveillance through these evil 17 intelligence agencies and all these private spy corporations against us. I mean, and then Eric Schmidt, they need to get laser focused on him and his treasonous acts. And just look at the 2016 election, where we provided you with the details of how Man in the Middle worked for those elections. So we can say that he's evil, but let's just go for the jugular, take him out, and take out all the Silicon Valley stuff too, because we really don't need the spying going on. We have to stop that. And also, I want to give a shout out for somebody that I know that we have both seen being very presidential lately, and that would be Ohio Representative Jim Jordan. We just have to call you out. You are spot on, buddy. You are nailing it. You're asking the right questions. This is the kind of leadership that the new Americans want to see. We want to see honesty, integrity, truthfulness, forthrightness. So congratulations, Jim, for being that kind of patriot for the rest of us.